Hello and welcome to the Andyplex, the podcast where we talk about movies we love with creatives and also hear their artistic journeys. I'm your host, Andy Majorano, and this is episode 26, Smitten with Mitton. Horror writer and director Andy Mitton joined me for episode 25 to talk about Creepshow for its 40th anniversary. And now please enjoy his creative origin story. I am so honored to have him on the show and have become such a huge fan of his feature films that are as intelligent as they are deeply and profoundly scary. Now having seen 2016's We Go On, 2018's The Witch in the Window, and now the unreleased Harbinger, set to Bell December of 2022, I clearly see his films all have an angle, a lesson, and a powerful allegory behind them. I truly could not wait for this opportunity to get under the hood of such a groundbreaking horror force in the entertainment business today. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, Andy, it's nice to be here. It's nice to give you another Andy.
Yeah, this is the Andyplex.
First, it's that many more Andys. Like, you got to imagine it's Plexier.
That's right. It's Plex here at the Andyplex. Two Andys together. This has been a long time brewing. Thank you for zooming into my living room in Los Angeles from New York, correct?
That's right, Sleepy Hollow, New York, in fact.
Ooh, Sleepy Hollow.
Ooh, yes.
Like the movie.
Like the movie, or around here, you have to say, like the Washington Irving story.
Like the Washington Irving story.
Literally, the ambulance in this town has the Headless Horseman on the side.
Oh, my goodness.
So if you're bleeding out somewhere and they come to get you, you see that.
That's the image you see as they cart you away.
That's right. But thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
Yes, myself as well. Very pumped. Here we are, and I've known about you for some time now through a collaborator of yours and myself, Richard Wallace King, who is a dear friend of mine, and he just hired me for a movie called Incoming, and we did the COVID unit, which was an adventure. It was a 5-week job. Yeah, it was completely just, hey, do you want to do it? And I said yes, and it was great. And Rich is fantastic, and he's a killer producer, as you know.
Oh, he's the best.
He's awesome, and he's just so fun to work with, hilarious, and I miss him. And he moved to Long Beach on me a couple years ago.
That's right.
But we still get together, and we had some epic sleepover parties over the pandemic and watched 20 movies in a row, and
nice.
It was great. Let's hear your story. You were born in New York?
I'm from Boston originally.
You're from Boston. Okay.
I'm a Boston animal, and thus never thought I would be living in New York. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
But
made the leap.
Yeah, it's been a little circuitous. So yeah, I grew up in Boston, and horror movie nerd as a kid, and then a theater nerd in high school, and then a theater nerd in college. Where I moved to LA. I was in LA for 14 years. Ran a nonprofit theater company for a little while there. Was dabbling in theater while learning post production. I did post at like the Discovery Network for a while. Briefly wrote for the Learning Channel a show called Mega Machines, where I would write about tree lifters and large bulldozers. Good times there.
Awesome.
And yeah, eventually, we had this theater company that we were always planning to take into film, and I always wanted to combine the kind of skills I was amassing and bring it into horror specifically, which is my first love. And I think there's nothing you can't do in horror. There's nothing you can't explore. So it's, I'd be quite happy making them my whole life. But that whole situation became Yellow Brick Road, which was my first film. I co-directed and co-written with Jesse Holland and a bunch of us who'd gone to Middlebury together. There was kind of a family of us who combined with a new family and shot this crazy movie way up in New Hampshire. And, super polarizing movie that went to Slam Dance. And I think the polarizing was good. Like, no one was like thinking of their grocery lists on the way out. Like, they either fucking hated it or they fucking loved it, or, they appreciated we took a big swing. But
it got the conversation moving. It roused the senses.
It definitely did. I thick into my skin reading the Netflix reviews of that movie back when they had Netflix reviews.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then from there, it's been independent horror movie making with a little bit of musical theater on the side. I do still write music and lyrics for theater sometimes in a totally separate environment.
Oh, cool.
But since then I did We Go On with Jesse and a lot of the same team, and then my last two efforts have been my solo efforts as writer director, which have been The Witch of the Window in 2018 and The Harbinger, which is coming out this season.
So exciting. Yeah, I haven't seen Yellow Brick Road, but I've seen the other three. And I was living with Rich King in 2013, and he said he got a gig, and it was for this network called Chiller, which isn't anymore. But he told me about this project, and he mentioned you and Jesse, and I got to see the cut when it was over. And I remember thinking, man, this is so cool. This is so creative. And what I didn't think was that I was going to be scared by it, because it was about a song that makes you go mad.
Yes,
but
Listen My Children.
Listen, My Children, yeah.
Yes.
And which was part of a pack, right, of other
It
shorts.
started an anthology. We made it as a standalone, and then Chiller took it and said, oh, we're going to branch it out into the Five Senses, into an anthology movie. I can't believe I glossed over that, considering we're going to talk Creepshow. Yes, that's where I met Richard. We did this little anthology before we did We Go On.
Yeah, great. Anthology, horror anthology. I remember watching it and just being already thinking it was so cool and so fun, but it actually scared me, and it really got to me. And then not long after, he screened We Go On, an early cut of it, and Jesse was there, and I got to give notes, and Rich said, you want to come in, and he rented a little room at AFI where he was studying. I think he had just finished his 2-year program at AFI, and then I moved in with him right after he finished. And the place was right around the corner from AFI, so I was always up in there. And people still think I went to AFI, even though I didn't. I worked on the movies, and I went to the mixers because it was right around the corner. It's like, hey, you want to get some free dinner and watch a movie or whatever? But anyway, yeah. So it wasn't finished. There were some shots missing. There were some things missing. But I remember I had my pen in my hand, and I was prepared to write more, and it drew me in, and I kind of forgot to give notes. Pretty much, I gave a couple, I think, but
yeah, I'm sure. Thank you.
I'm sure they were great.
For your contribution. I'm sure they left an indelible mark on the film. But no, that's so cool to hear that it was working at that stage. I remember that I was in Washington D.C. at that time in limbo with like a pregnant wife and like two cats who were fighting, living in a hotel, writing songs for this kids musical in this completely other world, and then I'd edit We Go On at night.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I see the piano in the background of the frame.
Yeah,
here.
It's there. Not often used these days, but it's there.
Just in case you want to play the scariest song ever and freak everybody out.
That's right. Or a happy song about squirrels, depending on the kid.
Yeah, you got to cover your bases, So, yeah, you actually answered a couple of my questions. I know when it comes to horror, people are known as horror directors or horror writers. And I don't know if people always like that, or being put in a box, or being put in a label. But you said how much you love horror, and you're okay with that.
I love that box. Oh,
you love that
box. I just want to live in that box and curl up in that box. That's my box.
Yeah. Okay, great. Excellent. Because, now that I've seen your third, I haven't seen Yellow Brick Road. I've got to check that one out. But you sent me a screener of Harbinger, and it's not out yet, so I don't want to say too much about it. I don't want to get in trouble or get you in trouble or anything. But like the ones before it well, first off, it scared the crap out of me. So good job, bravo, hats off.
Thank you.
I mean, it really got me. I remember Rich. I was talking to Rich, and we were at work. And I think I had work the next day, and I was like, man, I should probably just go to bed. I had to be back on the movie that we were doing. We were doing the COVID. And we had a pre-call a lot of days. We had to get there, and we had to test the crew. So we had to be there a little early. So usually if I wanted to actually get a good night's rest, I had to just like run home and dive into bed. Movie hours, how it can be.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just so pumped and tickled that you shared it with me and shared the screener on Vimeo. And I watched it, and I put it on. I did it right. I put it on late at night by myself. I have a projector, and I got the surround sound, and I just cranked it. And boy, I was just floored. And almost right away, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this movie. I don't know if I can make it. Like, I was scared.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, but I have a million questions, but in terms of how you approach horror, it's so unique. And now Witch in the Window, we go on Witch in the Window, and now Harbinger are the ones that I've seen. It always has like a message or an angle, and it's not just horror for horror's sake. There's so much going on. There's so much kind of allegory, and I use the word allegory way too much on my show. It's my favorite word.
Love it. Bring it.
So I'm always mining for the allegory. And it's always there in your pieces, and the characters are so strong, and it's so like stage play. It's a couple of characters. It's usually a couple of locations. It's nothing, it's honed in, and it's dialed in and focused. And the character work is so strong. But so when the horror kicks in, it's truly just horrifying,
That's cool to
so
hear.
I just want to know, like, where do your ideas come from? What's the process? Do you see character first and then you put them into the world, or is it kind of the idea hook and then the other way around, or how does it?
I think when I was young, particularly when I was writing plays, and I might include Yellow Brick Road in this a little bit. Its detractors will agree with me, but I was a little bit more. I've got something to say, or I've got something I wanted to explore, and then I would craft a story to sort of service that. And I learned pretty quickly that didn't feel right. That ultimately story had to be king, and I had to think of a story. It had to be story first, otherwise I was wagging the dog. And I trust that, like, if I built a machine of a story that worked as a machine, like, and I'm the one writing it, my feelings are gonna kind of flow through this story, rather than the other way around, the story flowing through my feelings about something. And that as I write, I think of it as like carving little pathways in the story for, what would be called an allegory or images that might echo, or find meaning in. But like, especially with the Harbinger, I think I started with a feeling. I think I either start with a moment or a feeling, and The Witch in the Window are kind of two different examples of it. With The Witch in the Window, I mean, that movie's known for a certain scene in the middle that involves a phone call. I won't spoil it, but people who know it, that's all they need to hear. And that was the seed of the movie, rightfully so, because I didn't know how that scene was populated exactly. I didn't know the context, but I knew what the rug pull was, and I knew how I wanted it to feel. And I literally built forwards and backwards from a moment I felt was like movie worthy. And I think that is kind of effective. But sometimes it's a feeling. And with the Harbinger, it was like, even before I wrote it, I was on the phone with Richard, talking about Jacob's Ladder, talking about the way that movie makes us feel.
I love that movie.
I love that movie too. I really do.
It's so good.
And that, what's really relative about what I try and do and what that movie does better than I will probably ever do, but you have a really warm-hearted protagonist. Like Tim Robbins in that movie is super warm, and he's
such a teddy bear in that movie.
He really is. It's his warmest performance, and he's in this cold world that only gets colder. And I love that friction. I love putting like warm-hearted, intelligent, sincere individuals through like the machinations of horror and getting like a new sort of friction out of it. So I think that's something I'm doing regularly as a pattern at this point.
Right, to kind of help you build the groundwork and lay the foundation for.
Yeah.
I like how you said that the moment the rug comes out, because the rug really does come out and you can feel it. And there's moments like that in Harbinger. I loved, if I can just talk a little bit about Harbinger. I don't want to go into detail because it's not out yet. I don't want to, want to get anybody in trouble. But your approach to the pandemic specifically and attacking the lockdown, not just the pandemic, but the lockdown. And it was the first thing that I've seen that actually just goes right in and does the lockdown.
Yeah.
Which was so cool. And I felt as if the whole collective unconscious, and the dream stuff all stemmed from that as kind of your foundation of us being trapped basically in our own homes and being stuck.
Yeah. I thought of it as less, almost more, I would call it the gasoline rather than the foundation. It's sort of, it's the fuel for everything. I think you could have a mythology like this that, you could write a version of this movie easily enough without the setting, but it wouldn't, like the fuel would be missing. It's what drives it. And I think this sort of, especially at the time I wrote it, which was, it was a fast process, right? I started writing in August of 2020, and we shot it in February, just a few months later.
That's crazy turnaround.
Yeah, so it was that time when we didn't know where the finish line would be. We were pre-vax. We were losing people, and like the feeling of like lives being lost and kind of slews of not being able to be honored, or with anyone at the bedsides, or it was impossible to process, and it was scary. So I was definitely fueled by that, and by my own nightmares, and by just wanting to make a horror movie and nightmares, because I just don't think Freddy Krueger has to have the market cornered. I think there's more to do, and like, why wouldn't you want to play in what we all have in common? This thing that we don't understand, we dream.
I love this.
All of us do it. We can't escape it. We need it to survive. We need sleep.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you play in that sandbox all the time?
No, I love that. Yeah, I know the dreamscape. Yeah, there's only been a handful of films that Freddy being really the only horror besides yours that I can think of. Did you ever see? Was it Dreamscape '84?
No, it rings a bell though. Like a VHS cover popped into my head when you said.
Yeah, it's more like political assassinations. They're killing people in their sleep through dreams. Like if you die in the dream, and then it had some frightening elements and some moments, but it didn't go pure horror. But there was a real rug moment for me in Harbinger when the main character realizes that they're still dreaming and they're not out of the nightmare. And that whole moment where you're like, oh my God, where's the line between waking and sleep? And how do I know where that line is? And the dream within a dream, those moments, I've had dreams within a dream. I can't remember. It's been a while now. I've had sleep paralysis before. It's been a long time. I've had a couple.
I was going to say that went into it too. That documentary specifically, The Nightmare.
The Nightmare, that was so good.
It's so good. It's a genuinely scary film.
It's a genuinely scary movie. I remember I do my horror marathon starting usually around now, and I try to do a horror movie every day until Halloween. And it used to be October, then I backed it up to September, and then in 2020 I was like, well, spooky August, Spoggust, we're starting early. But it was a few years ago, and I remember I had been already deep into my run, and I felt kind of like nothing was getting to me, and I was kind of being a little cocky about it. And then I was a fan of Room 237 and The Shining, so I was aware of the director, and I kind of just went into it with guard down, and The Nightmare, and it got me. It was so horrifying. It got me. The reenactments of the entities in the room and everything.
Yeah, I'm normally like, don't do reenactments in your documentaries, but when and this was one that like that rare case where it works, and it feels dangerous, right? You get that feeling of like, am I now going to have this because I'm watching this movie?
I know. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have it tonight. I was convinced.
That's the feeling I wanted to take into The Harbinger a little bit. Just that little bit of danger. That was sort of the point of Listen to My Children too, back in the day when we did that. It's just that little bit of, at the end, you feel it crossing into your world a bit, and just puts that little doubt in the back of your mind.
Yeah. No, and I like what you said about that. We all go through it. We all have to. We have to go to sleep. And when we're worried to go to sleep, then it's, oh my God.
You look for the things we share, right? I keep saying there's this aversion to working with the pandemic directly right now, and I totally get it.
Mm-hmm. We're tired of it. We're sick of it. We don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, like, I even think rightfully so. Like our North American distributor, like, there's nothing in the trailer for The Harbinger that shows you it's a pandemic movie, because they're wisely like, that's all your expectations are not what this is. It will hopefully deliver the goods of a horror movie, but I just think you look for the things we share, and like, as a planet, there's not a lot, we have in common historically. It's rare that there's an event that touches all of us at the same time. And we end up with this shared well to tap into. And it's, horror gives you that cushion to look at the thing in the eye with a playfulness and, in a sense of, yeah, I'm not ready for like the serious drama about it. I don't think, but like, I'll take a horror movie.
I'll take a horror because it's kind of fun. Like it's kind of spooky,
Yeah. As long as your story first, like we're saying, I think like get right on the nerve and like, we know this community, they're ready to go there.
Yeah. They can do this.
Yes.
No, yeah, I loved it, and I'm probably gonna have to have you back on after your movie releases. December was 4th.
December 1st.
December 1st. Okay.
Yeah.
December 1. That's my mom's birthday.
Ah, very nice.
And she's
That's
not a
why
horror
we
fan.
chose it.
So. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna be like, hey, Mom, I gotta watch this movie on your birthday. She's not a horror fan at all.
Neither is my mom, so you can imagine.
Yeah. Although it was her that got me to watch Alien when I was 7 years old, and she got in a mode where she was watching a lot of horror.
She showed you Alien at 7 years old? Nice.
Well, I wasn't supposed to come down, and I came into the room, and I came right before the chest burst scene.
I can tell this is a formative memory.
Yeah, it was formative, and then I saw it, and then I was having stomach problems off and on. I think mostly because my diet was not good, and I was eating a lot of, dairy and what have you. But I was convinced that I had an alien growing inside me after I'd seen that. And I think that was kind of the early seed of it was a little bit of a love-hate because I was very affected by it, and I would lose sleep, and I would be very scared. And I would be scared to go to bed, and I'd sleep with the lights on, and then Dad would come over and say, leave the light off. It's not good to sleep with the light on. It's bad for you. But I was too scared to turn it off. And anyway, it's a whole other can of worms. But I've always had a love for it. I've done a lot of horror. And the first one I did by myself because we just hit the lockdown. It was 28 days later, and I was like, oh man, it's about it's about an outbreak, and people don't know what's going on. And so yeah, horror has always been able to, I like you said, hitting it on the nerve. And what did you say, through the cushion of horror we can really,
it's a little bit of a cushion when there's the scary real thing on the other side of the cushion. There's just enough so we can feel removed a little bit and still get a dash of escapism. I know that's what everyone thinks they want. So
yeah,
you draw them in thinking there's, that's the main meal, but then you're going to get a side of, truth.
Yeah. Something to take away, I love that, a side of truth. Yeah. Something to really chew your mind, chew on in your mind. And I feel that way about now, We Go On, Witch in the Window, and Harbinger, that I'm scared in the moment, but then I can't stop thinking about it. And it opens up questions, and it just really gets the conversation going. It's smart horror. It really is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And you guys have just been able to execute so much smart horror and in a very contained way with not a lot of bells and whistles. And it's really great. I just I can't stop thinking about it.
We couldn't have paid for the bells or the whistles if we wanted them. Don't worry.
Yeah, they get more expensive every year.
They really do.
Darn. But anyway, I really think a lot of creativity comes from not having $1 million trillion. I would say $1 million, but actually that's not even that much anymore. But let's go with $1 billion, or tens of millions.
Yes.
So We Go On. What gave you the idea for that? So it's about a guy who puts an ad in the paper to produce results of life after death.
We were auditioning shorts for Chiller. And we ended up going with Listen to My Children, but on that list was a short called We Go On that was just about a guy who puts this ad out, and it focuses just on one response, the one that the movie ends up hinging on at the airport. And just that was similar to Witch in the Window. That was one that turned on a moment. It was like being basically like the idea of a ghost bringing you to their dead body. And the idea of that ad, and the sort of easy hook of that ad and the reward money. When we went with the other short, I just kept thinking about it and was like, there's ways of growing this. Like there's more to do here. I want to know like more responses to this ad. I want to go on a journey with this person. So it has a unique structure, I think, for that reason that it started in that way. There's sort of a short film in the middle of it. And it is a film where purposefully the second half feels different tonally than the first.
Absolutely.
There's a turn that's supposed to feel like a surprise, and then kind of an unexpected race to the finish line. So it was personal in some regards. I think the idea of having a believer and a non-believer on a journey together to, looking for proof of the afterlife was, Jesse and I always felt like we were an interesting mirror of that, like, because he was kind of approaching things from like a more of a non-believer or agnostic sort of point of view, and I've always been, the strange person who believes in some of this stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask who was which one.
Yeah, I'm the believer, and we always liked the idea of like, what if just these two people on these sides of the river, take one step toward each other, Excuse me, I just hit my mic, through going on this journey. So it sort of started there, and it holds it holds a dear spot in my heart. I think mostly just that central relationship. I ended up feeling, I get a lot of people saying like they never see the sort of adult man and his mother relationship, and I'm super close to my mom, so it was cool to sort of show that on the screen.
Yeah, I do love that element. I'm super close to my mother too, and using her Zoom right now so that we can not be cut off at 40 minutes.
That's so right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you,
Italian,
moms.
Right? Is it Italian? Yeah, my mother is 100% Italian.
Oh, really? Interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, my last name is Majorano, but her last name maiden was Annone. So I'm Italian on both sides.
My mother's a Raffanella.
Oh wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Super Italian. That's great. Yeah. The Italian bond is rough. Not rough. It's deep and tough and powerful.
Yes.
And me leaving to go to LA was, she was always like, go for everything, attack what you want. But she often says, separation for Italians is worse than death. In some ways. We talk all the time.
That's a very Italian thing to say. Yes.
It's a very Italian thing to say. Yeah. I know. I was like, that's pretty intense, but I'm going to call, if I was dead or not, if I could call, of course, maybe if you're a believer, you could,
there you go.
From beyond the veil. But yeah, no, I love the whole idea of kind of getting what you wish for, and be careful what you wish for, kind of. I think that's a classic, but done in a really fresh way. And We Go On, and there was so much comedy and so much kind of fun, and obviously when the hoaxes come in and the goofy and the silliness, and when going into the high school and when it was all set up, and the fun there, and then like you said, there's that rug pull moment where, oh my God, I got what I wished for, but holy crap. Now
the Harbinger himself brings Clark to the house. That's the same guy.
Oh yeah, same actor. How'd you meet him?
I went to college with him.
Oh, you went to college with him?
Yeah, and Clark as well. We all went to school together. But he's unique because he went to like France and studied at Lecoq as like a clowning, physical, like, and not only like a physical actor, an expert in those things, but an expert in mask work in particular. Oh, wow. So he's been just sort of like, he's sort of like the ultimate horror utility man. He does a lot of things well.
Awesome. Yeah, really.
Jay Dunn. I should say his name. Jay Dunn.
Yes, let's say his name. Jay Dunn.
Yes, I'm like complimenting him without saying his name.
Yeah, Jay Dunn. I saw him in a commercial a couple years ago, and I reached out to Rich. I was like, oh my God, We Go On.
Yes, he's got a distinct thing about him.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, in terms of your finding your other actors and whatnot for Witch and Harbinger, did you go through the same channels or just going through casting sites? Or
it's a little different every time. Witch in the Window was like, I knew I wanted Alex Draper. He's in Yellow Brick Road, so I'd worked with him, and he's a professor at Middlebury College, so he doesn't get exposed nearly enough as his talent would demand because he's a full-time teacher.
Wow.
So I was like, I want to rent a movie for you and for a house. If you find me a house in Vermont, I will take a production to you, and we'll build a production plan out of this, because like Vermont's got no tax incentive. But if we get this relationship with the college where they can give us the house, we can take some students below the line, and just make a nice two-way street out of the whole thing, and that's how the whole thing was born. So what's cool about that is I had not only cast Alex, but I had cast the house before I wrote the movie. So I wrote the movie knowing like where all the rooms were and like where the PowerPoints of the house were, which was super valuable. And then Charlie, I found our child actor, Charlie Tacker, who's no longer a child, is now like a jacked dude going to Emerson College. He was just like a find, online. We didn't have a casting director for any of it, so we just watched reels and reels and reels. And Alex brought in some friends. But for The Harbinger, it was a different process because the whole theory behind that was we got lockdown and all the theaters are shuttered, and all the best actors in New York who would normally be in the middle of a run of a play are in their apartments, and a lot of them want to work. So it's like there's an opportunity here actually, and it's good for us because if we bring everyone from the same city in the same state, we're taking less of a risk with everyone's health. So it kind of worked in a lot of regards. We shot out in Binghamton. Pretty much all our actors are stage actors who, just up and coming. Gabby Beans, who's our lead, was just nominated for a Tony for her work in as Best Actress in Skin of Our Teeth on Broadway this past season. And I think Emily Davis and Gabby Beans, I think people are going to know their names in a couple of years in our community. They already know them in New York. And other than that, my casting director was the HBO show High Maintenance, because if you want a tour of the best actors in New York who you never see doing great, just one episode, one-off work, that show is the ultimate.
Cool.
It's really like half of the cast had little spots in that. So I just watched the whole thing and took notes and, reached out to people and made it happen.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, Emily Davis has Mavis, who reaches out to Monique, played by Gabby Beans, right? For the
yes,
you got to come, you got to break quarantine and come now. Yeah, just phenomenal. Rich said that she was at the Tony Awards.
Yes,
that's so cool. That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, just excellent acting and really just. Good horror, you have to care. You have to care about the folks. Otherwise, it like you said, the character in the story and the horror stems from that. The horror is, like how you said, the fuel that drives the engine.
Yeah. I mean, certainly there's another kind of horror where it's fun to root for the bad guy and hate the population he's going to slash or whatever. Like, I'm all for that as well. I would like to, I'll try that one day maybe. But, like,
yeah,
I think for what we're shooting for to work, yeah, I think the best friction comes from just building up the love truly, amidst this dark atmosphere. And I think a lot of movies spend time breaking relationships down internally in their movies, like characters fighting when they should be uniting against the thing. And I think when you have faith in your external conflict, you don't need to create a bunch of mini conflicts in the middle. You should be mending those things so that by the time there's a face-off, that love is at its strongest and not faltering.
They're unified together against the forces of evil.
Yeah, and you'll get the best. You'll get the best game out of that, right?
Yeah, I love that. Oh man, that's good stuff. That's great. Yeah, it was a Stephen King, who we'll talk about soon in Creepshow, said, the best horror comes from creating the most realistic, wonderful characters and then turning the monsters loose on them.
That's right.
So yeah, the king himself. Oh man, so Witch in the Window was such a great story about a father and a son, and a divorced parents, and kind of like you said, a broken relationship. Speaking of, and trying to mend that, and the horror kind of coming from that as your emotional base. Again, so scary, so powerful. When the rug pull moment, when you realize the phone call, the reality has turned, and I think that's such a powerful thing in your films when there's that hook, that moment. Like you said, the rug came out, and yeah, you just feel it, just pins and needles. Oh my god, and then there's just that switch. I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I was going to ask where you kind of engineer that moment. It sounds like a lot of times you engineer that moment and then you reverse engineer around it before and after it.
Yeah, that moment's the seed in this case. The very seed of the entire movie is that moment. And we knew it on set. Like, everyone knew the scene number. Everyone knew the day we were shooting it. Everyone knew if we didn't get that day right, we might as well scrap the rest of it because it just needed, it needed to be tops. And so there was a lot of talk about it because the moment you're talking about is captured largely in one shot, which was my intention. But, there was so much riding on that scene. We did get other angles. I did have to then cut it a few different ways to show people, to kind of plead my case. And ultimately I'm super happy that, everyone had the patience to trust we were going to be holding tension in that one shot and let the actors do their thing, get out of the way.
That's great. Well, yeah, it's fantastic. Rich King actually got me a Witch in the Window poster for my apartment. And
nice.
It's
the classic, just the classic poster, or did he get one of the 4-in ones?
I think he said it was one of the rarer ones where you can see, was it Lydia? Is that her name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See her face. And if you make the lights red, I have Philips Hue lights in my apartment. I don't know if you can see the purple over here, but if you make it red, she really pops out.
Nice.
And I put it behind the mirror and behind the sink in the bathroom hallway. I have one of those bathrooms where it's like the toilet and the shower's inside, and then it goes into the hallway, and then you get the sink.
Gotcha.
So I put it right there, and there's a big mirror. So when I'm brushing my teeth, I got Lydia.
That makes me very happy.
I got it right there.
Very happy about that.
I gotta say, I almost had to move it because it was too scary. But now Lydia's like my roommate. It's all good.
We should do a special edition poster for Witch in the Window that is a magic eye.
Yes.
'Cause there's for those
awesome.
who don't know the movie, there's 2 instances where the screen just fills with one of those old magic eyes, and it forces you to take your best shot at shifting your eyes so you can see what's there.
Oh, I love that.
It's become sort of an infamous thing because it was on our set because when you're stressed, you can't do that with your eyes. And like sets are stressful, as you know, so like
forces you to calm down.
Our production designer was like, "I don't know if it's upside down. Like someone has, is it upside down or right side up? Someone has to like make their eyes work, and like no one could do it. We needed it.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
That's great. And Lydia herself is somewhat of a magic eye. Is she there? Is she not there? Do you look harder?
Yeah, we had fun playing hide the ghost in that one. It was funny because it felt really like a new thing to me at the moment, and then it came out right alongside Haunting of Hill House, where I think it was also playing that game at the same time on Netflix.
Oh yeah, the Mike
Flanagan. Yeah.
Whom I'm loving his stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, that's exactly sort of the dream track for me. Just like he's been just allowed to be himself in this really wonderful way. That's inspiring.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, and got a new one coming out in I think early October.
Yeah, it looks cool. Midnight Club,
yeah, which reminds me of the Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, totally.
Which was another influence. Didn't have almost said Netflix. Didn't have cable coming up, so I had to go to my friend's house to watch it. But that was always like the best part was that one. Yeah. And
totally.
Speaking of anthology. Well, I saw he's actually judging a horror script competition or something. So I don't know. Maybe you should try your hand.
Oh, really?
I honestly feel like if he saw any of your movies, he'd be impressed. So.
Maybe one day we'll get to. Well, I'll connect with him. But in the meantime, we just root for anyone doing well in the genre, lifting it up.
Yeah, definitely lifting up
and
very smart. Like your films, very smart. Not just. I mean, I love a good slasher. Don't get me wrong. I'm very excited for the new Halloween. I'm pumped for. I watch it all, but I really just love the smart horror that you're doing, and Mike's doing as well. I just think it's so cool, and the characters are so rich, and the world's so rich. Midnight Mass, I was just like, oh my god, wow.
Yeah,
and yeah, I'm a big fan of Hill House, the Haunting, the '63 Robert Wise, and the novel as well, Haunting of Hill House. So yeah, getting to see it expanded in a really fun way. At first, I was like, oh, I don't know. They tried to redo it in '99, and
that really didn't go well.
Yeah, that really didn't go well.
I remember that.
Yeah, me too. And even much younger, I still was like, ooh,
same.
Not good.
It was an age when I liked everything.
Right?
Like, it was really hard to make me admit
To mess it up.
internally that I didn't like what I was watching, and yet that time.
Was there a kind of a seminal moment where you said, I want to go, I want to pursue a career in film or entertainment? Was there a hardcore moment where you saw a play or a show? Was there a defining moment, or was it a kind of a slow burn evolution? I asked all my guests this question.
What I knew is I wanted to be a writer. I knew that since I was about 4. But then that he sort of evolved over time. And so probably in my teens, I would have said I wanted to be a novelist, but then I fell in love with theater and I started writing plays. And I dabbled with writing screenplays like in college, but I think by the time I'd moved to LA after college and was still doing theater, but like literally even while we were doing theater, we did like a night of horror theater at the Stella Adler. And we were still, I don't know, that was just in our hearts. So from that point on, it felt like I knew what I was scheming to do. I wanted to make horror movies, but I had to get the playwriting thing out of my system for a while. And I'm glad. I think I learned a lot during that period of time. I think I learned a lot of lessons that I would have had to have learned, in the film world if I had been spending it there, and it might have been harder. But it was good. And a lot of those relationships we made during that time just led directly into Yellow Brick Road and into everything else. So it's in my heart, that's been the seed, like as a writer, kind of before anything else. But I can't imagine writing a novel now because I'm addicted to screenplays. I'm addicted to like the fact that it's a blueprint for other artists to fill the margins in with new ideas and how it's going to change and how it's going to grow in every phase. Like that's the part I love.
That's so cool. Yeah, it really is kind of a meta step. It's not the kind of final piece. And like you said, it grows, and everyone. It's such a community, making a movie. It's such a collaborative process.
Yeah, it's the ultimate. I mean, even when I'm here as the writer, director, editor, composer, yet these, like, the better I get, and with every movie I make, I think the only reason I am able to get better is through collaboration. And the better a listener a director is, the better a director is at culling all the ideas in the room in a completely egoless, hopefully, a calm, clear-headed way, then the better the result is. So I sort of reject that, like, as much as I do all those things, I don't come into this like I'm an auteur and I have like I'm just a collaborator and a conductor at the center of this orchestra of really amazing talents.
Wow, maybe coming from a music standpoint too, I've given you that angle as well, kind of conductor.
Yes.
I love that. Do you have an approach to working with actors? Or do you just kind of crack into each piece in its own? Or
I learn who they are first. I think every actor needs a different approach or prefers or just has another way in. So I'm open to, I like kind of figuring out what they need. And learning to say the right thing, because so much of the job is like what do you say between takes 2 and takes 3 that make it come together, and it's a little different with every actor, but normally if they're smart, they can take it for a few takes on their own, and you don't need to keep stepping in there, but
less is more to a degree sometimes.
Definitely. But coming from theater, what I've needed to let go of is rehearsing. Like, I think making the first movies, it was like, we need rehearsal. And I still believe that rehearsal's valuable, but like the way I think about it in theater is there's a moment in rehearsal where you figure out what you're doing. There's like a magic moment, usually after everyone's learned their lines and you've had a few go-throughs, something happens.
Something gels.
And all we're doing is trying to film that rehearsal and capture that moment. That it happens, that because in theater you're just trying to recreate that magic over and over again every night. You know, but in film if the camera's rolling and you make sure that by take 3, take 4 we're getting to that spot, we've got it, and we can move on, and that's really cool. So I like for the Harbinger, Zoom was helpful because we could talk. We could understand the scene sort of musically, and in terms of the arcs and the ideas behind them, and we had all the thinking part through so that the physical part could be a surprise. We didn't, the blocking could be organic to what we needed in the moment. Like the ideas could change when we got on our feet, and you still don't spoil the surprise of what's going to happen when we're finally in the room. So it's a balancing act, but I love learning about it, as I go.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I guess a lot of Zoom going on at that point.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. But easier to schedule rehearsals, right? The rehearsals are usually just the worst, trying to get everyone in a physical room together.
Oh, I have a dentist appointment at 11, but I could do 11:30, but
Exactly.
then when everything's locked down. So there's some advantages there. That's great. Oh man, so do you do anything to kind of it's funny, Rich was showing some people the trailer for Harbinger in our trailer.
A trailer in a trailer?
A trailer in the trailer. The trailer.
Nice.
And I noticed a lot of people had the same question. Do you guys do anything to get the actors in a scary, creepy mode? Do you do anything to kind of... so I don't know if you guys have anything that you do to kind of heighten the fear factor.
No, I think that like a quiet, focused, fertile energy, as much as like you can create, that is usually all they'll need. And then they'll know, I don't know, sometimes, if an actor knows themselves, hopefully by the time, they're given a big responsibility on set. And some of them, you'll see them walk away with their headphones on, listening to whatever they want to, they have in their toolbox. And someone else will be trying to like do the opposite. Like, I don't want to think about anything. I want to have like a just a shorthand, simple conversation with someone right up until I hear action. Because then they're just dropped into the moment, and their brain's not in the way. Like they're not tripping over their thoughts or their plans. And I admire both approaches. So I think for our part, we can slightly turn the dial on the kind of speed of the energy in the room. Like if we're going to be doing something active and maybe comic, where you want it to feel a little loose, maybe the set feels a little looser that day. And if it's going to be serious, maybe things are at a little bit of a hush, and the crew kind of absorbs that. But more than that, I would say we just we try and be as steady as we can for them.
Yeah, I love that. Great. All right. Well, can you give us any tease as to what's next for Andy Mitton and co? Do you have any? I know that's always the question. What's next, right?
I don't know. I feel cautiously optimistic. I'm at a crossroads. That we are at a crossroads. The team is at a crossroads with this movie, where hopefully some of the relationships we're building and the inroads with distributors and people doing sales and the people we're meeting on this process so far seem to be good partners going forward. I'm too jaded to say like, I think we're going to be doing this with them, but
right.
What I can say is I've got like 6 or 7 screenplays that I'm psyched to shoot. They're at different budget levels. And I don't know which is going to pop up.
That's
incredible,
I have a lot.
Man. I have
and
a lot
so
of
you're really always writing, huh? You consider yourself a writer first?
I will write when we're done. I've learned to like, I was terrible when I was young. I was the classic, like, whatever the saying is, the best part of writing is having written, right? And I still relate to that, but I was always a procrastinator, and then I would lump it all into little bits of time and make myself speedy and crazy and, do all the things we do.
Drink too
and
much
now
coffee.
It's like, this is how I go. This is how I stay regular, is I write. I'm a night owl. I write
you have a
in
routine.
the middle of the night. I have a routine. It's, it keeps me from just pacing the floors and thinking about all the things that I can't control, especially when I'm in like a stage like this with the Harbinger and pre-release, and
a lot out of your hands.
I can't know everything about its fate. I've got like 7 people reading my scripts that I'm waiting. I'm so curious as to my fate, but like if I just think about it all the time, I'll go crazy. So I write.
Right.
And
something you control.
That's been good. Yeah.
That's
and
great,
I've got,
man.
I've got Richard and I've got Clark and people sort of at my side, even ready to read things at early stages. My wife Laura, who's in the Harbinger as well.
Oh yeah, she was fantastic. Speaking of Zoom, the Zoom therapist. I mean, and those were your kids, right?
Those are my kids.
Wow.
Yeah. actually over Zoom from Connecticut. They were not physically on set at any point, but we just did it au naturel. And,
yeah, I was like, oh, the Zoom looks so real. It looks so zoomy. And Rich was like, yeah, it was a Zoom.
It's because that sort of Max Headroom effect every now and again.
Yeah.
It's nice.
That flicker. Yeah. Well, they're beautiful. And yeah, your wife's super talented. I mean, she was able to really toe the line between some of the funny moments and some of the real intense moments.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really fun day on set. That whole week where we shot in the apartment, we were comfortable because we had built that set it almost felt like theater, because what we had was a big room with the right exterior brick walls, and we built the interior walls. So we created this apartment, but it made it so there was this like backstage, and we had one of the walls on wheels for one of the effect, and it just felt like a set. But then the last week we were just out in the snow, in the cold, and in like the coldest dungeons of places I could ever imagine. Like, so there was this 1 week in the middle where we were comfortable. And other than that, we were not.
The Goldilocks zone.
Yes. The golden week. And then from there it was frozen toes. There was a lot of days no one felt their toes.
Oh man. Yeah. I grew up in Delaware, so I know the winters. And I ran away. I went to Miami, and then I went to New Mexico, which actually still was pretty cold in the winter. Did a couple of westerns, got frozen. Me and Rich King, we did 310 to Yuma, and that was one of the.
Oh, you were on those shows with him. Yeah, I've heard some of those stories.
I know. I have a memory of like we were doing locations, and it was like, oh, we gotta pour some sand over in front of the meal tent, and it was this ice patch in front of the meal catering tent, and I just have a memory in the dark pouring sand that was immediately being swept away by the wind. And I was just like, why am I doing it? It's so cold.
That's great.
But then by midday, it was almost warm, and it was all about layers, and you had 3-4 jackets on in the morning at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and then by noon, you're in a t-shirt practically. And then as the sun would go down, then you throw them back on. But yeah, the elements, that's a factor for sure. You could feel the cold. You could feel the cold in Harbinger.
It was the first movie I have not shot in like May or June. For some reason, the first three all were like in the comfiest time of year.
Yeah.
But I still feel it. But I think we left some ghosts in Binghamton, New York as well.
Some frozen ghosts.
A few things behind us, yes.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it pays off. I really do. You can feel it. It's just one of those. It could feel the kind of cold. I felt cold watching.
It makes no sense for the movie, right? The movies should be in like April. People don't really talk about that in the reviews because we were just like, you know what?
Yeah, whatever.
F it. This is the world we're in.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be right when the lockdown started, right? Like March.
Yeah, in the script it describes like fields of grass, and and then I saw the snow, and as much as it didn't make sense, it was like it did for the feeling, for that Jacob's Ladder shiver we wanted, and it was just a new look, and it was like, yeah, let's wrap our arms around it and not worry about how right it is.
Yeah, no, I love that. I didn't even think of it. Honestly, I think it really works. It's cold, you're huddled in, locked down, and then horror ensues. So your process, you write at night. Do you sleep ever?
Yeah, I do. I have a few mornings assigned where I will get the kids up, but mostly I'm like the cooking dinner, bath time guy in terms of the parenting split.
You're the closer.
Yeah, I'm yes, exactly. And I will now be referring to myself as the closer. And yeah, my Elora is the opener for sure. So I'm sleeping from, I don't know, when I'm behaving, if I get to bed by 3, I can sleep 3 to 9 and be okay.
Okay, about 6 hours.
Yeah.
I want to be there. I really do. I want to be there. Anyway.
It ebbs and flows. I have this, I have this Fitbit now, which makes me feel, I don't know how I feel about admitting that I have this, but I've learned a lot about my sleep. And there are days it's like, yeah, I only got the 5 hours, but like my Fitbit tells me it was good.
Those were
the
good
kind. Like
good
I went
5.
deep, and I was in REM for this amount of time, and now I've got like stats, so it gives me
got a breakdown.
It gives you some confidence when the numbers don't look as low at first. They don't look right at first glance. It's like I'm doing okay.
Yeah, you're actually okay. Maybe I should pick myself up a Fitbit.
Hey,
there you go. All right. Thank you, Andy, for sharing your journey with me. And folks, if you haven't checked out this man's work, We Go On, Witch in the Window are both on Shudder, and Harbinger will be coming soon, December 1 in theaters. It's on its festival tour right now. Honestly, I can't describe to you how scary and well put together these films are. So hats off to Andy Mitton, Rich King, and co. for making some of the coolest, scariest, best horrors of the last chunk of years. If you want more Andy Mitton and you haven't checked out episode 25, The Creepshow Show, check it out because Andy and I wax poetic and deep dive into the 1982 horror comedy masterpiece, Creepshow, now 40 years old. Thank you for tuning into the Andyplex. Love you all.